We have with us Aurora Griffin, who is the author of How I Stayed Catholic at Harvard, 40 tips for faithful college students. Aurora, welcome to the set of The Lens.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Isn't this your sort of childhood dream to be on The Lens?
Oh, absolutely. Always been dreaming of it.
So, Aurora, tell me a little bit about this book. I'm always fascinated with how books originate, whether you had these 40 tips sort of marinating in your mind and were writing them down on moleskin binders and things throughout your college, or was it something that just kind of gestated from a conversation with a publisher? Where does this book begin?
Well, this book begins on Easter in 2015. I wish I could say it was because I had been keeping careful notes during college or had an insightful conversation with somebody. But really what it was is Easter night, I was in the shower, and I had the great idea for the book, where I suppose that maybe is where all great ideas come from. But I just jumped out of the shower, suds and hair, threw in a robe, and ran across my house, started typing it out.
Wow.
And so the title of the book was there. The idea to have Peter Kraft write the foreword, the idea that Ignatius might publish it, and 38 of the 40 chapters. So it's, for me, such inspiration from the Spirit. I knew this idea couldn't have possibly sort of sprung from my head at once.
Some help from your friends. So 40 tips. Why 40? This episode today, we're focusing on the sort of numerology of all things religious. So why did you pick 40? Was it just that made sense? Or could there have been 50 or 30? Or why 40?
Well, 38 tips for Catholic students didn't seem to roll off the tongue. 40 seems like a nice biblical number, and while I had 38, I could definitely come up with two more.
Very good. Now, a little bit about this show focuses a lot on social media, digital media, how people, young people connect. Certainly people can buy the book on Amazon and Ignatius's website, but if people wanted to kind of connect with this content, how are you starting to connect with individuals where they're at, which might be on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and how are you using social media to continue to have this conversation sort of outside of the print?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because a lot of students are going to want to go online and share their stories or ask me questions, and I really want to make sure that I'm available to do that. So there's a Facebook page for the book, there's a Twitter, and there's an Instagram. I'm checking them all the time and answering questions as they come up, trying to get photos on the road. So
yeah, so what is your level of engagement and comfort with all these digital channels? You know, you're you're an author, and then you try and translate how you feel on a digital platform, which some people could find incredibly personal, but some people could also find very hard to connect with individuals. How have you tried to cross that divide?
Sure. Well, you know, to be honest, before the book, I didn't have an Instagram or Twitter. I think I was just maybe 1 year older than when those two platforms became the popular way to connect with your friends. So I've had a Facebook for a long time, and that's very natural. But the Twitter, figuring out all the hashtags to get everybody in the Instagram, tagging all the right people has been, it's a quick learning curve. It's not too hard to do. And when you think about how many people you can actually reach with it, then it's no problem.
Pretty easy to set up all those accounts, and I even noticed one of the tips was engage with social media.
That's right.
So it even made it in the book.
Had I known, I pointed people to other people's social media. Had I known at the time, I would have said, and there will be a social media for the book.
So I've walked around the old Harvard campus, and I've seen, I think, some form of this arch here. Is there one with a cross right there?
That's right. That's Johnston Gate. So you come in as freshmen, and you are not allowed to walk out that gate as a Harvard student until graduation. It's considered bad luck. You won't graduate.
Right. And the interesting thing about Harvard that a lot of people that I'm sure you also know is the old motto of Harvard was Veritas Christo et Ecclesiae.
That's right.
And now it's just Veritas. A little bit about your Harvard experience. I'm sure this is going to be the question on the road that you'll get a lot is people kind of want to pull back the curtain on, okay, to be Catholic at Harvard now, is it hard? Is it easy? Is it easier if you're part of various groups? I know you were part of the Harvard Student Chaplaincy. Some people think it's really bad, and some people think it's not bad at all. Just where are you in terms of that spectrum?
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna say it's easy to live your faith at a secular school. There's a reason why I felt like a guidebook was necessary, or why that would be helpful for students who came after me. But it's also not impossible. I do think that, in my experience, there's a lot more people who say this is just absolutely so difficult. Everybody's against you. And the point I want to make is that you can do it. You know, you have to invest in it. There are practical ways in which you can make yourself open to grace by staying in the sacraments, of connecting to other people through the various Catholic clubs at Harvard and at other places. So it's tough, but it's doable, and doing it is actually a great adventure.
So the sequencing of this list, right? Was there some order to it, or is it sort of they could all be mixed around in terms of how it flows, and in terms of, is there one that's more important, right? Like there's 40 offerings on the Cheesecake Factory menu, but what's the best?
Okay, the best is actually not one of the 40.
Ooh, okay.
So there's the twist.
I like it. Wait, don't tell us the answer. Make them buy the book to find out. Go ahead, tell us.
Okay, all right, fine, I'll tell you. So in the introduction, I talk about how it's really important to go to Mass every single week. If there's like one thing that you do, it's getting yourself to Mass. And if you want to grow in your faith, try to go every day. I also recommended that introduction, frequent confession, basically just staying in the sacraments. And then the 40 are all things that sort of go beyond those very basic steps.
Very good tips, very good ideas. Last minute of the show, favorite place to pray around Harvard, in the Harvard campus area, not counting St. Paul's?
Oh, that's a trick question then.
Go for it.
Okay. I would say, I prayed a lot of rosaries by the Charles River. I'd go on nice rosary walks, and it was really beautiful.
Very Ignatian of you, God in all things. And then just the last question, this came from a fan. Someone said, it seems like you have a focus, and you got some funding for research in transportation, highways, and car pathways, something called a road scholarship. Is that true?
Yes, somewhat. So actually,
you know this is a joke, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So actually, it's the Rhodes Scholarship.
Rhodes.
You would not believe how many people
RHODES.
make that joke, or actually think it.
This is not a Boston traffic research study that you've been doing.
No, right.
Okay.
It's the England one.
The England one. Very good. Well, Rhodes Scholar, Harvard grad, and for right now, and most importantly, Catholic, and author of How I Stayed Catholic at Harvard. Aurora Griffin, good luck with all the work that you do.
Thank you.
Promoting this book, but just as a Catholic in the world.
Thanks for having me on.